What are your worst college roommate horror stories? NSFW. I had a housemate, 4-person house, who I asked to take care of my dog over one weekend. I never left any of the responsibilities associated with my dog up to anyone else because the rest of the guys were doing me a favor by letting me have him there anyways. This one housemate wasn't a huge fan of the dog, and when I came home after the weekend, there was crap and pee in my room where presumably my dog was kept most of the weekend. His food and water were in there too, so I guess that's something. He was really skittish when I went to say hi to him, so I think my housemate hit or kicked him while I was gone. This one makes me sad. I had a university flatmate who was a bit crazy. It started out with her just stealing my food, I couldn't leave anything in the kitchen for more than 12 hours or she'd have it, and putting passive aggressive notes up in our kitchen calling me a liar. I have food allergies but apparently I was making them up. She was nasty to anyone I had over. She took all my crockery and put it on top of the cupboard so I couldn't reach it and I had to climb up and get it all down. She then convinced all of the guys in my flat to take the kitchen furniture and pile it outside my door so I couldn't get out of my room. I got the flu. She spent a day screaming at me through the wall whilst I alternately cried and slept until my parents came and drove me home. It got to the point where I was considering dropping out of university, but I asked to be put in another flat as a last resort. I got moved into a flat with 5 guys and it was so much messier but so much nicer. When I was a freshman, my roommate basically had his girlfriend, whose own room was on our floor, move into our small dorm. They were banging all the time for 4 solid months. I'm waking up, freaking, going to sleep, freaking, got back from class, freaking. It was completely out of hand. It was every day at least 5 times for months. There were empty bulk condom boxes everywhere on his side. I basically couldn't be in my room. One day, I just wanted to come home from a long day, sit down and play Mortal Kombat with friends in my room, but you guessed it, the B was locked. I went to our lounge, dejected, and told my friends I really just want to walk in there, sit down, and play just to spite them. One friend looked up at me and said, "Why don't you?" I was shocked. Then I nodded and said, "Yeah, why don't I? Let's go boys." So without even knocking, 12 people followed me as I unlocked the door, walked in, refused to acknowledge them, turned on my Xbox, and we played for hours. They just sat there for a while dumbfounded. That's the same week I changed rooms. Next one wasn't too much better, but at least I could be in it. This happened to my cousin. I was there to witness the aftermath. My cousin is an international college student who had just moved here and barely spoke any English. He moved in with another roommate to offset the ridiculous cost of a NY apartment. His roommate met a pretty cute girl. However, he discussed it with my cousin and agreed that there was something odd about the girl. He didn't want to fully commit to a relationship just yet, but they still hooked up. My cousin also said that his roommate still talked to other girls, but didn't move farther than that. One day my cousin and his roommate were having breakfast in the kitchen. The girl had slept over the night before. The girl wakes up and goes into the kitchen and picks up a knife and stabs his roommate in the neck 3 times. My cousin freezes in shock but then picks up his chair and tried to fend her away. She then takes the knife and stabs herself in the chest. Everyone survives. My cousin cried and called my dad telling him he hates America and wants to go back to China. Dad, America is just like it is on TV. Everyone is just stabbing each other. She got mad when I moved her clothes to the dryer after they'd been sitting in the washer for a day and a half. I just set their wet clothes on top of the dryer if they didn't move it in a timely manner. If they complained, I would just tell them I don't know what in their washer's dryer, safe or not. Besides, it was likely when my wash was done their clothes would still be in the dryer anyways. B didn't pay rent for 3 months and we didn't know until after our lease was up. Was just resolved 6 months ago and graduated 2 years ago. Will never sign a joint lease again. Similar experience. Never sign a joint contract. I had a roommate that would mix booze and pills. One night she fell asleep with her vibrator doing its thing. She woke up when the batteries ran out. At least she had some fun dreams. Had a friend that was going to medical school at U of M. He liked to mix booze and pills. One night he did his thing. Vomited in his sleep and aspirated on it. His girlfriend found his body the next day. He was smart and had a promising future. Instead he died like an idiot. Don't mix booze and pills. I've never resided in a college dorm, but I just want to share that once I was in a Skype call with my good friend, who does reside in a dorm, who left his mic on when he left for an extended period of time, allowing me and the other 2 people in our call to hear all his roommates, like 5 other dudes, arguing about who ate the last Pop-Tart. It got pretty intense. Is this what dorm life is like? Freshman year college had bunks. Drunk roommate comes home before me. He sleeps on top. He drank too much. He wet the bed, like an open fire hydrant apparently. I came home later and sat down in a flash flood puddle on mine soaked to the core. Needless to say I threw it in the shower and told him to get me a new one. Dollars to donuts. He just drunkenly pee on it before climbing up to his. I had a friend who confusedly peed on the pile of dirty clothes in his closet once. Late to the game, but here it goes. My favorite roommate story is from freshman year. My roommate came home drunk one night and wandered into the dorm basement. She was too drunk to find a bathroom, so she peed in the dryer, not the washing machine. The dryer. I'm half horrified, half impressed, given the fact it was a front loader, and in an incredible twist of fate, the next day she forgot her clothes in the washing machine. Some kind gentleman paid to put them in the dryer for her, and it just so happened that it was the one she peed in the night before. Sometimes I think karma isn't real, and then I read a story like this. Sharon used to eat in her room and then slide the plate under her bed. She'd do this every day until my other roommate and I couldn't bear the stink anymore, and needed plates for our own dinner. She also regularly invited her drug dealer boyfriend over to hang out in our app during the day. Several times I came home to find deals taking place in our living room. Eventually the cops were called by one of our neighbors and we, not him, were interrogated and searched. Go on. My first roommate. Oh, the memories. Very heavy, very socially awkward and definitely psychotic. Often mumbled to himself with shifty eyes, ate my food, and was either railing against the evils of religion out trying to get me to join the Army of the Virgin or some other Catholic sect. He often lounged around in his tighty whities and refused to clothe himself if I had guests or girls over. He would just sit down and put a blanket over his lap. I walked in on him jacking it or blaring pee a number of times, with which he used my tissues. He would also have long phone arguments with his girlfriend, who according to the wallet photo he had of her, was Greedly from Captain Planet. The kicker for me was when he had a breakdown and called the RA and a counselor in to talk with him while I was writing a paper. He is highly agitated and at one point said I just looked over at lemon juices while he was asleep and thought to myself I should just take out my knife and kill him then myself. No offense lemon juices. I was in the zone with the paper so I automatically replied none taken then did a double take as the horror dawned on me. Nonplussed eye contact with my RA. Nope the frick out and moved to a different floor. This will probably be buried but hopefully someone can benefit from my past misery. No offense lemon juices. I'm dying. Dude shaved his chest hair in the kitchen. Also, had a super loud Asian girlfriend who screamed during sex, even when we had people over. My freshman roommate was an okay guy but we didn't really have a ton in common. I think the housing department matched us up simply because we both liked ska. The dude seemed rather asexual. He had friends but never had guests and I couldn't tell if he was gay or straight or what. Keep in mind that in those days even in the most enlightened circles some people tried to stay in the closet. Now one of the things I regret most about college was drinking to excess. And I'd get blotto, where I remembered very little about the night before. One night I was way too hammered. Don't even remember how I got back to my room. But I woke up around 4 AM to the oddest dream, which was that while I was passed out, my roommate came over to my bed, took off his pants, and climbed on top of me. In the dream I woke up while he was pulling down my pants and I rolled over and with one solid push shoved him across the room where he crashed into his bed in his tighty whities. I was a lot bigger and stronger than him and sent him flying. I can still see the image of him hitting his bed like it was yesterday. I went back to being passed out and later woke up remembering that weird ass dream. My roommate was gone, but later that day I saw him and he had a swollen lip. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt so I'm not going to say for sure what happened. But a couple of weeks later one of the dudes next door asked me if I wanted to swap roommates and move into his room. And I said yes in a flash. My freshman roommate installed a sliding bolt lock on the door to our shared dorm room so that I couldn't enter while he was in bed with girls he brought in, which was so random I could never tell when he'd be using the room. The worst part was when I'd get back very late, wanting to get in the room and go to sleep, and he'd have me locked out in the hallway, especially when I had an early class. Even when I waited patiently in the hall, he refused to unlock the door, until one night I knocked harder, and he threw a glass full of ice water in my face as he finally opened it. My roommate and his girlfriend's anniversary happened to be on Valentine's Day. On the morning of, I awoke to smell of chocolate fondue and noticed him making chocolate dipped strawberries. I commented on how nice he was for doing so, to which he replied, "Yeah, and if she's lucky she'll get a chocolate dipped dong after." Now I thought he was joking, but later that night I heard a scream, not out of the ordinary if you knew their sex life, but that's another story, followed by the door slamming. I went on with my night and figured it was not a big deal. The next morning I saw him in our kitchen and he apologized for the scream. Me being naive asked what happened. His actual response, "I wanted to give her dessert, so I poured the fondue right onto my dong." He then had rushed to the hospital to get his burns treated. I could never look at him or chocolate fondue the same. Fun fact, if you temper chocolate correctly, that is, melting it to 120-ish deg Fahrenheit, adding unmelted chocolate, then cooling it back down to under body temp, then you could chocolate dip your banana. Don't expect the chocolate to harden though, as your wiener will keep it just a little too warm. But chicks still love chocolate. Freshman year I got bunked up with an extra roommate due to over-enrollment. A cramped dorm room with 3 guys in it. For a while things were pretty fun and we were all friends. But after about 2 months one roommate had a few disgusting habits. First, he, instead of walking literally across the hallway to the bathroom, he would pee in empty or half-empty Gatorade bottles and just let them sit in the open. That was gross. But then he started shitting in takeout boxes and letting them sit all night or day until me and other roommate got back to yell at him. The third thing is he had a shoebox collection of used condoms be masturbated into. The smell was so horrendous and awful, it took the RA and whoever else in charge of housing a month to finally relocate me and the other guy and eventually kick the gross dude out. So for nearly an entire semester at any time you could walk into our room and see a crap in a container with leftovers still in it, a mosaic of different colored pee bottles, or a soggy shoebox on his desk filled with used condoms. He never went to class and would play video games on his computer until 5 AM every day. I still think back on it nearly 10 years ago and am blown away with how long it took for any administrative intervention to happen. My roommate once invited a girl that was kicked out of her house to stay with us. Keep in mind our dorm room was barely larger than a prison cell. I listened to them frick on the bottom bunk more times than I care to remember. Your roommate definitely thinks you're the shitty roommate for not leaving when they wanted to have sex. You have been visited by the futility doggo. Life is a dark yawning void of nothingness. You will ultimately find what you personally identify as solace in conspiracy theories and reruns of Scrubs to distract you from the fact that you will die alone and be forgotten.